Hey, nice people, how you doing? So, I was thinking this morning when I woke up, there isn't any periodic table for alchemy, so I thought I would make one based on what I'm reading in alchemy books. So, I hope you will enjoy seeing how this all works and fits together. How would one go about making a periodic table of alchemy elements? Well, firstly, it wouldn't really be in periods. And secondly, we're not talking about elements because in alchemy there can be no such thing as an element. Now, I'm releasing this video onto my regular channel for historical purposes so people can see how the people who built pyramids actually envisaged the world, because the people who built pyramids, I'm discovering, surely used this system. It is a system which is actually based around pyramids, as we're going to find out very quickly. Firstly, I want to give you some just fundamentals about how it all works. So, how it works is this. So, basically, we're proceeding in terms of evolution of creation. And that's something you notice about alchemy. Chemistry, you can go backwards and forwards. Alchemy, you tend to move forwards from what has been created into simpler substances, because you're kind of doing the work of the creator, and hence alchemy is seen as divine. So how alchemy works is this. And I've put what we could call chemical elements in cartouches, although you will see there can be no such thing as simple chemical elements, rather substances. So let's get started. So the waters of creation were the primordial first substance along with God. And the waters of creation are known as the philosophical basilisk, the abyssal water, or the feminine water. And what this is essentially the moon, or the female, the volatile, right? Think alcohol, think volatile chemicals. And that mixed, and that's also known as the mercury, and that mixed with the word of God, or the vibration, or the slimy earth, which is the sulfur, or the oil. And that is the male principle. And that mixed with a third principle, the salt, which is the body, or the code, or the crystal, or the form. It's just an empty body without a soul. So what you have basically is the mercury, or the volatile, or the female, or the chi, the energy, the ka in Egyptian, mixing with the sulfur, which is the oily substance, volatile and oily, the moon and the sun, the female and the male. This one is the male, or the soul, or the ba, and then the salt. The word salt and the word solid do seem to have a common origin and mean a similar thing. You can think, and we are looking at two words which sound very similar: sulfur and salt. They both have the root soul. So you can think of salt as past tense of having a soul, an empty body. Soul in past tense, completed. So I'm calling this one the ba, the soul, and this one and this is what alchemists accept. I'm not making up anything up in this video. This is alchemy. And I'm calling this one bar 2, but that's the only convention that I'm particularly doing, because again, we're looking at soul, so another body, which is interesting. Anyway, from this equation proceeded the creation of the 4 elements. And when we talk about elements in alchemy, we're not talking about chemical elements. What happened is that the words in alchemy inspired chemistry, but the words in alchemy mean totally different things to chemistry. For example, in chemistry, we have elemental mercury, which seems to replicate some of the principles of alchemical mercury, but alchemical mercury is applied to every equation which has resulted in the creation of a substance, anything that's volatile. And that's been applied to elemental mercury, which is volatile. Sulfur has also been applied to a chemical element, but it was more than that, just that, in alchemy. And aside from creating the 4 elements, which we actually are not just elements, but I'd like to extend that statement to of matter, states of matter, that equation that the waters of creation being vibrated by the god, Mercury under a pyramid, by the way, does that sound familiar? This is the pyramid religion. That resulted in the mineral. And the mineral was then exalted into the plant, and that evolved and exalted into the animal and the spirit. And until the 19th century, it was thought that the animal chemistry is so sacred that it cannot be done by humans. And then German chemists started doing it. Right? Now, here's the thing. Each of these kingdoms, or whatever they are, contains substances which are in turn divided into mercury, the volatile, sulfur, the oily, and salt, the crystal. So what's going on, right? So all metals are actually seen as halfway between, are actually seen by alchemists as salts of mercury and sulfur. So I've drawn them in between the mercury and sulfur. So the fundamental aim of the alchemists is to try to reduce to as simple form as possible to get purer substances, because everything in alchemy is mixed up with these three things, and you want to remove these three things one by one from the substance to arrive at a certain other substance. So for example, famously, the base metals, the copper, then you get to the silver, you get to the gold, and somehow to get to there, you need the philosopher's stone, which might be a salt. So why would having that help you make gold? Well, the answer is you would possibly try to remove the salt. You would try to remove the salt from the silver or the other base metal mixture to get to gold. Then we have the oily mineral substances. So all acids are oily. And eventually you get stronger and stronger till you get to aqua regia. So you want to go in this direction. You want to get to the substance you want by following the laws of nature. What is a salt? A salt is a crystal. It's a rock. You can purify it into a crystal. It's ash. And eventually you get the philosopher's stone. And what I've done, I've put a little bracket here showing that all the metals are all of these substances: mercury, sulfur, salt. All the acids are mercury, sulfur, salt. And all the crystals and salts are mercury, sulfur, salt. So, and what's happening is I've drawn arrows because you want to change this into this. You might get rid of some sulfur. You might get rid of some metal. Over here I've written planetary classification, because there's an additional classification where different planets control different metals. And so you would go to the alchemy clock, see the clock video we made, and you would see what time you need to react a certain metal with another metal, what time of day, what time of month, etc., etc. It's almost like menstruation. So then we look at the plant kingdom, and what I'm reading in the alchemy books is in particularly this handbook of plant alchemy. From this, I think it's from 79, or this one's from 85. It's a very good book. What is considered the mercury of the plant kingdom is basically ethanol, the most volatile substance. What would some sulfurs be? Some sulfurs would be plant acids like vinegar, tartaric acid. And then you can purify and get the volatile sulfurs, which are the essential oils, the very smelly ones. You keep melting it down, you'll get rid of some volatiles, this arrow here, and you'll get to a fixed sulfur, which is a very oily resinous material. Or you can get rid of some salt. You can then burn that off, get rid of some salt, make a more pure substance. Then we get to the this thing, which was not, I don't believe it was really covered by the alchemists, but fundamentally what we can do, the mercury of the animal might be the urea, but eventually the CO2, the product of animals, which is very light and volatile. And then, or methane, I don't know. And then sulfur. What is the sulfur of the animals? Well, it could be the stearic acids, which make the soaps, the oily substances, uric acids, fats. And then we can see the animal also has crystals, because proteins can be crystalline, you can crystallize them, so it's the body. So it's literally the body, which is what we saw up here, that the solid, which is just a code by itself without the soul of the sulfur, which is the soul. And you can crystallize even DNA. DNA might be the ultimate salt of the body. So what have we learned from all this? Right? So the alchemy seems to be Trinity-based. It's Stone Age, as we saw. It's based on a sacred three, and that makes me really think that it's from Europe, because in Europe we've always had the Trinity, which was part of the Catholic religion before Christianity became introduced to the Catholic religion. But back in the days when the Pontifex Maximus ruled the religion, and he wasn't a Christian. Every substance is a fractal of mercury, salt, sulfur, as we've seen. Little is pure, or it would not exist. Hence, there can be no atoms or chemical elements. The alchemy table proceeds like a family tree in a forwards direction. Alchemy processes are therefore assisting the forward work of the creator. The basic principle of alchemy, it's not making gold, as we've seen. It's male plus female plus form plus substance. Mercury, sulfur, salt equals substance. That's alchemy. And you're trying to split these off. And that's what you're trying to do to make new substances. And this was their conception of how it worked. Obviously, chemistry, far superior, a far greater understanding. But this is alchemy. This is their conception. And now I want to introduce something else as a bit of a wild card, which is very interesting. I saw this in Mr. Pseudonym Manfred Junius's book, and those look a bit familiar, don't they? And apparently they are two simple calcining furnaces. So calcining is extracting the salt by turning something into ash, and then you dissolve that, and then you try and purify that some more, and with the water, the distillate or whatever, or what is left after you get rid of the distillate, you'll try and grow some crystals and make a very pure salt, and then you'll put it in a jar and you'll look at it and you'll say, isn't that pretty? And that's what the alchemists do, and they say, oh, this can cure maybe a disease or something. That's what lots of alchemists do. But why do these look like pyramids, and why do they have a fire in the middle like a pyramid does, according to the name, pyramid? And I thought that's very interesting. So here you have the fire, which, by the way, is the same as the sulfur, acting on the mercury underneath the pyramid, the sacred waters of creation underneath. So do you see what the pyramid religion is? The pyramid religion, something fell on the floor, is doing this equation to create. And I was going to call my pyramid book Centering Creation, because you're putting the center of creation in the middle of a country, like the Giza pyramids. So you're doing an alchemical recipe, the waters of creation under a pyramid, mixing with the hand of God, which is vibrating those waters, shaking them, which is the pyramid on top, the pyre, a pyramid is a pyre, and then the form. The form is the intellectual information inside the pyramid, such as the dimensions of the earth. And you are creating a new world of fertility. And I reckon the alchemy, as you see, is fundamentally tied to the thinking responsible for the growth and development of the pyramid religion, which was extinct by the 2nd millennium BC. Cheerio.